Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi Achint. I have with me Mr. Jayadeva Ranade, an inspiration, if I may, for people like me who like to watch China and, of course, multi other affairs around the world. Sir, namaskar. Thank you so much for joining in. Always a pleasure to host you on the program.
Namaskar, Adi. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, firstly, we were discussing offline as well, but I'd like you to kind of help our viewers understand. It's very interesting when you see Xi Jinping is no more. Xi Jinping is got a stroke. Xi Jinping has this, Xi Jinping has that. As you explained that it talks about a certain amount of discontent, and you kind of explained it to me very, very carefully. Uh, that is the main principle that the CCP was fighting against, discontent. And so the bug is biting back, sir?
Yes, definitely. I think there are, popular discontent is something that the CCP certainly does not want. And when they brought Xi Jinping in 2012 at the 18th Party Congress, and they appointed him, they gave him unfettered powers by making him General Secretary of the party, Chairman of the Military Commission, and President of China, all at the same time. Last done 35 years earlier. So they gave him a lot of power. And the mandate was very clear: ensure that the CCP, that is the Chinese Communist Party, remains the premier ruling political party in China. Second, instill the Chinese ideology, Chinese communist ideology, into the people of China. And third is make China strong. So, with this mandate, he really had free run. He went about it. He laid out, as you know, his global agenda, the ambitions, etc., where he wants China to be, all that kind of thing. He also cracked down on corruption. He cracked down on corruption in the PLA and in the government and in the party. Things like that he has done. But the economy was showing signs of a bit of a slowdown. And if I can just dilate on that a little bit, one reason was that Xi Jinping's belief, his own economic belief, is that the state owned enterprises, equivalent to our public sector undertakings, the state owned enterprises are the engines for China's growth because they have the money, they have the capacity, and they will drive the economy. They'll be able to acquire the latest technology, etc. He ignored the private sector, which, as you well know, the popular Chinese saying is they say that it accounts for 60% of the employment, 70%, I think, of capacity, 80% of revenue, etc. So they are actually these small enterprises, but they are the engines for growth. And he has been neglecting them. Uh, Now, what has happened after COVID, which was, of course, a dampener on the economies of the world, not only China, but after COVID, the folk who went back to their villages have not returned. They are still there. A lot of companies shut down. A lot of small companies that were barely existing have shut down, causing, obviously, generating more unemployment. So all this has happened. Now, in order to uh, curb profligate spending, he took certain steps, which in turn also contributed to this problem. One was he told the provinces not to engage in land sales.
Hmm.
Now, he used to do that. 35% of their revenue used to come from that. He banned it. So they were cash strapped. Now, what happened? They cut the salaries of their government employees, that is, the provincial government employees across the board, all departments, by between 20 to 25%. Bonuses that were issued were withdrawn. So there was again a lot of discontent there. And that is the situation till today. The budgets of virtually all the government ministries in the last 3 or 4 National People's Congress sessions, which is equivalent to our parliament, were cut by about 15% odd, except for the foreign ministry and the security ministry, and of course the national defense budget. The rest were all cut. So, there is economic squeeze that he is applying on everyone. Now,
Hmm.
because of this, a lot of the small, restaurants, cafeterias, etc., had to shut down because the people didn't have that kind of spending money. So all I'm trying to say is that the consequences of each of his actions have actually added to this kind of distress, and he is still banking on the state-owned enterprises really coming in. So I think these are the problems they face, and what you said about reports about Xi Jinping being ill or Xi Jinping being dead, etc. These are all, to my mind, at least personally, I feel indications of how the public views him. They don't want him there. And I think this is, wishful thinking that he'll go one of these days, something or the other will happen to him. And that is why we are seeing this very unusual uh, uh, phenomena of people standing up, risking their liberty and putting up banners, etc. So that's how I'd you know look at what's happening.
You know, I did a program on this when this whole rumor was going up, and we came to the conclusion, kuch to hua hai. In simple words, something has happened. We don't know what it is, but something has happened because he wasn't there for the Planium meeting. He didn't complete that. Kai Chi literally took that meeting up. It didn't go the way. The Chinese like to put across everything in nice pictures and rosy videos and this and that, and Xi Jinping doing ha ha ha, and everybody's doing that. Didn't happen this time. So a lot of the rumor mill obviously came across. Now that is something which is very interesting because previously, sir, from China, this kind of information never used to come out.
Yeah,
It used
exactly.
to be
That's
one
why I
odd
said.
little thing in months.
That's why I said this discontent is quite high. And on
So
the third plenum, he delivered the main speech, of course, and he met all the leaders, etc. In the afternoon, he had another session with them, and then he went away. And of course, all the rumors began flying. And then he appeared a day after the plenum. But in the context of these rumors, I must mention that this Jennifer Tsang and others like her who are uh, putting it out from outside, and people inside China who are also putting out rumors. To some extent, they're motivated. Now, Jennifer Tsang is a Falun Gong uh, operative, I mean, activist. So it's in her interest. And outfits like the Falun Gong and the Chinese dissidents, etc., they're trying various means in which to spread these rumors inside China,
hmm.
including by internet, etc. So that's something that analysts like you need to also uh, keep in mind before saying, "Oh, he's gone." Wait a
Yeah,
couple of days. He'll
yeah.
probably bounce back somewhere.
He'll bounce back. That's what I said. Kuch hua hai. I don't know what it is. So I don't want to put my finger on it because if he
Yeah.
bounces back, people will say, "Hey, he's alive," and that doesn't make sense. So, but when we look at Xi Jinping today in the political geopolitical scenario, you see him trying to do stuff. Ukraine literally went out of his hand. He tried his policy in Ukraine. I will send an envoy. We will do this. He went here, there, tuck, tuck, everything over. He tried the same thing with Saudi Iran. They kind of nicked him out after the deal was done. Now he's tried getting all these Palestinian factions together, got them to sign a deal and everything like that. And the next day, the entire deal went out the window. So geopolitically, his relevance seems to be kind of reduced down to the factor that he's dealt with when it's required for business or it's required for the South China Sea. That's just about it. How do the Chinese strategists now have started kind of readjusting to this reality, sir?
I think what Xi Jinping was trying to do is trying to show that China is quote unquote a responsible major power, and therefore it has the sort of ability to interfere in these global crises and try and dampen the fires or sort it out. But the bottom line, I would say, is the trust element. How far will the others trust them? And how confident are they that China will bail them out or supply them with material goods?
Yeah.
As far as Ukraine is concerned, it's dependent on the United States and the others. And it doesn't foresee anything coming from the Chinese. As far as the Ukrainians are concerned, they're looking at China as a vehicle by which it can control Putin and maybe ask him to stop the attack on Ukraine. That is not going to happen. I think
Mm.
their interests don't match. As far as Xi Jinping is concerned, this thing continues. It's all right. He's reconciled. Earlier, I think they thought the Russians would finish everything within a couple of weeks. Now he doesn't mind it carrying on because it keeps the Americans occupied in that area. So I think that's the way they're looking at it. Leaves them free for the South China Sea in this region. In the Middle East, the same thing happened.
Mm.
Saudis, etc. They're they've got so much going with the Americans. I mean, they apart from the fact that their kids are studying there, their women go there to deliver children, and they're buying all kinds of military hardware from the Americans. There's a lot going on there
Yeah.
in the Middle East and there, and there is this impression that the Americans are the big boys on the block, uh,
Yeah.
which China doesn't have that. I think by stepping in with Israel, which will now become even more mercenary. There was a lot of collaboration, and between the Israelis and the Chinese, the defense sector and the technology sector. I think the Israelis may pull back on that. Let's see. But the Chinese, I think, did that. They overplayed their hand. And the word has also got around that, when it comes to it, the Chinese are not willing to materially bail out anyone.
Yeah.
They will come in, they'll try and do all this, but they will not materially bail out. And as you said, this meeting in Beijing of the 14 factions, etc., that blew up within a day or two. And I think guys like you and me would have also looked at it and wondered what he's trying to do when everything else is, I would say misfiring. I mean, the other powers are, playing their own games, and the Israelis have been very adamant in what they're going to do. So it was, I don't know why he did it, but anyway, that's his call.
To me, Israel is very interesting, sir, because previously it was kind of a rumor, and Mohammed Daif and his Chinese connections and this and that. Today, now Israel is talking about it openly. I said it a long time back. I was telling my Israeli friends, look at China. There is some connection there
Yeah.
because none of these guys have the kind of money that you're facing right now. Look at the Chinese. Today, the Israelis are openly saying this, that this Mohammed Daif had Chinese connections and stuff like that. So you basically instigated a war and now you're trying to resolve it.
Yeah.
I mean, are the Chinese such short thinkers? Because everybody had the strategic view of China. But when you get caught like this, literally behind the wicket in these silly little mistakes, which even the Americans don't make, I mean, uh, they know how to cover their tracks a little better.
Well, they've been playing the game for a while. I
Mm.
think the Chinese, a lot of myth building which has gone on over the years, particularly as they become wealthy and militarily powerful, that these guys, they think long term and this and that. Yes, certainly. In certain aspects, they think long term, they lay out a plan. But then, uh, and you're watching world affairs, things don't go as per plan. I mean, suddenly something else may happen somewhere. I think the Chinese don't have the ability or the agility to catch up with a new development very quickly. It takes them time. So I think that's one element they have. And second is they've been so caught up with their own myth building, that uh, it sort of spreads everywhere that the Chinese are these, uh, grand savants who know how to handle everything. I don't think so, frankly.
There are days when you say don't get stuck with your own story. I think that's what happened with the Chinese. But sir, economically speaking, the IMF went to them and said, listen, you've got a lot of money in your reserves and stuff. Why don't you put it back in the real estate sector? It's just $1 trillion. You've got $3 trillion as your reserve. You're in dire hard needs. Do it. The Chinese said no. Now again, the speculation starts that do they actually have the reserve that they claim or what? So how do you see this economic part going forward? Because Europe seems to be their only kind of went out, and India a little bit, but with $100 billion, the Chinese economy is not going to work. Even if 100 billion is total offtake that they're taking from India, that's still not going to work for them. And Europe and America now, hitting him with tariffs, especially in the solar and the EVs and all that stuff, which is his ground base after reality, after real estate. How does he plan to kind of recover if he doesn't want to reintegrate himself with the world?
Exactly, that is the question. I mean, just by promoting, he's got cash. I mean, it appears he's got cash. He's again now begun pumping money into the Belt and Road,
Hmm.
at least little bits here and there. He's giving cash to friends, if I may say, giving loans, etc. Of course, they are poison loans, but still, nevertheless. So he's doing all that. But how he expects to overcome this, I don't know. He is not listening to his own private entrepreneurs. And when they get very, shall I say, emotional about their problems, he throws them into jail. So that's a problem there. About these land things, you rightly said, IMF has said, try and ease the restrictions. He's not doing it. What I read from in the Chinese media and, from their gossip, is that he's worried that the provincial party secretaries, if they start again, earning their revenues from here, they'll become more independent. And he doesn't want that. He wants to control them even more. And he doesn't mind this present situation. And at the same time, he's putting a lot of money into science and technology. So, where the gestation periods are long.
Yep.
So, he's got a problem and he doesn't seem to be willing to listen. My view is that even Li Chang, the premier, he is not getting that free a hand as maybe he should have, or as earlier premiers used to get, because the economy was largely left to the premiers. But now it's not. In fact, he's the one who's doing it. Even the drafting committee of this third plenum, which, as you know, is the economic plenum, really, he chaired it, and he had Tsai Chi and this thing Shui Chiang as the other members, and of course Li Chiang must have been around. But this was the drafting committee. So I think he's maybe not listening to all these people to the extent that he should. And to my mind, the private entrepreneurs they wouldn't have been happy with the third plenum outcome.
Is
So
that personal ego? Is that
no,
personal ego, survival? What is it, sir?
I think uh, it's a state of mind. I mean, it's not state of mind. Uh, that's the way he sees the world. That through a communist lens, deeply colored communist lens. That it is a state which must control all the levers of production and distribution, and those are the state-owned enterprises. And therefore, I shall put money there. Now,
Sir.
for a while, it is understandable because they were headed or largely run by princelings, children of old revolutionaries, etc. That is less the case now. So I don't understand why he has this thing, but that's his view. I mean,
We've never seen Chinese backing off in the South China Sea, sir. But the recent agreement with Philippines seemed like a back off. It's not, but it seemed like a back off. And the Philippines, post the statement came out of China, came and gave their own statement and said, no, 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 we've not agreed to anything of that sort and this and that. And they kind of pushed it back. And the world obviously believed the Filipino side of it. How do you see that? One and two, there is also these talks that the Chinese are wanting to resolve stuff in India. Suddenly the foreign ministers are meeting and this and that. I didn't see too much of it because I don't trust the Chinese. But am I going wrong in my assessment, sir?
you're a wise man, but let me say that the Filipino thing, you are absolutely correct. They were just, shall I say, trying to show that they're reasonable and talking to them, but on ground, nothing has happened. The Americans had started talking tough, so they sort of decided probably that let's buy a little bit of time. That's the only thing. But why look at the Philippines in isolation? If you look at what's happening with Japan or with Taiwan, they're pushing ahead and pushing the envelope even more in both these cases. So I would look at it from that point of view. And as far as India is concerned, I see no signs of them wanting to sort the problem out. They're saying, yes, let's talk, let's try and restore the relations. but on their terms, which means that we stay where we are. And, now you come back. So what is the point of the whole thing? And in this context, I mean, at the risk of, promoting my own work, you should read my latest piece on the India-China thing, where I've spelled out exactly that. And you might like to go through it. But I've also said that this, the reports circulating in India and the news reports that began coming about how we need Chinese FDI and how we need to import from China, how we need to get Chinese technical experts here to keep our business afloat. Uh, that seemed to me, it was definitely an orchestrated effort.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. And I hope we don't fall for this insidious united front effort to weaken us from within.
The Chinese have some money in certain places and stuff like that, but I look at the thing that the government has ensured that they come in through private, family enterprises, Ambani and all these guys. One, because Ambani will literally own about 60-70%, 50-60% of the shares, so it's more Ambani taking money from the Chinese, and it's not coming into kind of directly this thing. So there's that protectionism which India is also trying to do, and we can see that happening. But then when we know that there is going to be dependence on China for certain amount of things, although that is reducing. API is down to about 35%, and steel is down to about 15%. But Chinese are buying steel from us. That's funny. I didn't really know that that would also happen. But when you see this particular thing, economics will still go on. So it's not possible to kind of completely say no to China without hurting yourself. So going forward with Chinese making these kind of overtures, if I may, and their media has calmed down, their hawks have been kind of put at the back. Now it's the doves which are writing articles and love letters about India in their strategic circles. How do you interpret this? Because we don't trust them, fair enough. But what are they trying to do? What is their game? Put
As
us at
far as
ease.
yeah, as far as the Chinese are concerned, uh, in fact, you alluded to it right in the beginning when you said the US and Europe are closing their markets off to the Chinese.
Hmm.
Uh, and their exports have dropped. Last that I read was about 20%, if not by now more, and that would hurt them. They're an export-led economy dependent on the US and European markets, so they have to look for another market. That is where India becomes important. We are the largest untapped market in the world today, and we are spending a lot on various sectors in order to develop ourselves. They're looking at that market and they want a slice of that fairly big pie. So that's one. The second, and I think the government, after a long time, it should have done it much earlier, has now decided to indigenize, with the bill, and I hope we are doing it. So if we go in for indigenization in a serious way, in the vital sectors of our economy, I think it will make a huge difference. It will bring down our expenditure on imports quite a lot, releasing money for other things. For example, in defense, I don't see why we can't make many of the items that we are buying from outside, frankly. And this thing of not having the technology sort of stymies me. I mean, making bullets, making carbines, etc., should not be very complicated when we are able to send satellites into space. So, we should be able to do it. I mean, if we just go back, Adi, and I'm sure an aficionado of this, to World War II history or World War One history, you find the US and UK starting with virtually nothing in defense production. And then within a year or two of the war, they ramped up. I mean, they were supplying everyone else. Why can't we do it? I mean, we've got the manpower, we've got the factories, and I presume we have the capability. If not, oh, we can certainly acquire it. So, things like that we can do. As you mentioned, APIs is a step in the right direction. Things like this. Now, why should we be buying umbrellas from China? Things like this. These idols and murtis and all lampshades. It's just because our trader finds it cheaper to buy it there and sell it here, and he makes a bigger profit than if he continues with that small factory that he had earlier, employing 4, 5, 6 people. So, but we need to shift that, I think, back to him by making it difficult or more expensive to import from there and sell it. These are small steps, but I think we have started in the right direction. But for the Chinese, they are looking at this place, and that is why these repeated efforts. But not even at one point have they said that they would either de escalate or they would move their troops back. So then, where does that leave us? You're on mute, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the whole thing, sir. I keep thinking about this, that here is a country. Uh, at the bottom of it, when Prime Minister Modi went to Russia, the Chinese were really happy at the beginning of it. Oh, wow. The Indians have learned a lesson. Now they're kind of moving away from America and all that. Reality kind of struck them when Prime Minister said that I'm not going for SEO, but I'm going to Russia.
Yeah,
And then the meltdown started. Like it was chilly hot fire. They abused Modi Saab. Okay, fine, fair enough. That's they've been doing for a while. They abused Putin. They abused pretty much everyone, including the Vietnamese, by the way,
yes.
who they accused India of getting Putin to kind of link with. So they're accusing us that we did the connection between Putin and Vietnam, and that's why Putin has gone to Vietnam. So India is kind of playing this game with us and all that stuff. Are they so naive that they don't see what's happening around them, or is there self righteousness? I am not able to understand. Here are strategic analysts who are writing stuff like this, professors in certain universities, and what happened here, sir?
I think a lot of them toe the party line and they read the party directives and party literature. So they get influenced by that to a large extent. Secondly, not all of them have access to international news. Many of them do, but many of them don't. So they're really working in an isolated environment. Of course, there are many who travel around still and who go and interact with other think tanks, etc. But it's controlled now. It's far more controlled. So I think it's that kind of thing, and they see what they want to see. And for example, as far as India is concerned, uh, they want to do us down wherever they can, wherever they can. As far as Russia is concerned, they probably feel that Russia should have briefed them in greater detail. I'm sure they would have briefed them, but in greater detail about what they are planning, etc. So this independence that Russia is showing, I think they don't want. So that is how I look at what they're saying. But with Vietnam, they've tried to now mend fences with the new General Secretary. Xi Jinping went and signed the condolence book and all that. As you know, he went personally to the Vietnamese embassy to sign the condolence book. He sent a congratulatory message to the new General Secretary. So he's trying to, um, you know, mend fences and improve ties with the Vietnamese. He's aware of the deep suspicion in Vietnam about China, uh, except in certain elements, among certain elements of the Vietnamese Communist Party.
It's really interesting. So now, how does China look at the American elections? Because that's another catch of it. Joe Biden was a softie. He didn't really. I mean, it was all statements, and he didn't do much. But Trump and JD Vance is something that he's fearing. How do you see that? I mean, a lot of Americans keep blaming the Russians for their misinformation. I keep look the other way, guys. Look the other way. But
No, but there are some Americans who are aware of that and who are looking very hard at China. I think by and large they now recognize China as a threat to them. But what they'll do is another matter. But as far as the Chinese are concerned, they're, I think, from all that I read, they're quite apprehensive, quite worried about Trump coming back. And in interactions with them, wherever one has had, also they keep asking, what's likely to happen and what do you think Trump's policies are going to be. And Kamala Harris, I suppose people feel that she will continue with Biden's policies, So that's the general thing. But there also, I think the pressure on her will be quite a lot if she takes over because the Republicans are quite strong and they will push hard. So I think the Chinese may find it more difficult because even with Biden, it was not all soft for the Chinese.
Yeah, it
He has
wasn't, but
done,
he kind of laid off.
yeah, but the point is on sanctions, etc. He continued. I think Kamala Harris will continue, and the Republicans will certainly push for more. With the mood that I sensed when I was there recently, uh, is quite negative on China. In fact, very negative.
Interesting. When you look at the neighborhood coming towards the end, so when you look at the neighborhood recent events in Bangladesh, everybody says, "Oh, this is China, this is China." I refuse to believe that. I've maintained it. I've kind of put out evidence for it that this is not the Chinese, this is the Americans. Why is it that there is a preconception in our mind that everything wrong that happens here, and I'm not a Chinese lover or anything like that. I don't even like Chinese food for that matter. Why is it that there is a perception that anything that happens wrong here is more the Chinese rather than the real culprits, which are, you know, which enable the Chinese to do all these kind of things certain times?
I think it's our own thing now.
Firstly, what do you think happened, sir? China or America?
Well, I tend to feel that the Americans have been unhappy with Sheikh Hasina for some time, and they have been wanting her out. I think
Yeah.
it was quite clear, even before the last elections,
Yes.
where they gave enough indication that they want her out, and so
Yes.
that means when the Americans start saying things like that, they're trying to get her out. They wanted a foothold there; she had not given it to them, a military foothold. Second is the Chinese, certainly they may have sensed that she's on weak ground or there is popular discontent, that is, if they were sensitive enough. And there was this little, she didn't come back with anything from China during her visit that would have upset her. And they probably did it purposely because either they were bargaining to get something more, or they felt that she's not going to be around for much longer. I tend to go with the former uh, logic on that. So that's the view. As far as who did it, I've given you my answer. I think the Americans. And as far as we are concerned, today the Chinese are bad guys. So anything bad that happens, the Chinese have done it. Earlier it was the ISI. Now that's receded. So that's in a short thing. I think that's how we are looking at it. But we have to look at the bigger players here, and I differ with people who feel that America is not capable of doing this kind of thing. It
The
certainly
only
is.
thing the only thing Americans are capable of is this, sir. I don't think the rest is. The Albert Einstein Institute on Nonviolent
Uh,
Action in Boston, New York.
yeah,
When I look at their 198 methods of regime change, which has been written by Gene Sharp, what happened in Bangladesh is like, you just step one, two, three, four. It's like that.
yeah, and
Uh,
they're appearing now all over.
yeah. And lastly, sir, how do you think the Chinese view what happened in Bangladesh? It's going to be a big threat for them.
It'll be a worry for them. If the Americans move in, then the gas pipeline and all goes through Sitwe. I think they'll be worried, because they'll expect the Americans will go and take Chittagong and all that, or have a facility there. Um, the army chief, for example, he's been trained in the West, so he would probably have a soft spot for them. Um, I think that from what I have seen so far, the Chinese have made no comments. Their embassy here or the consulate in Calcutta have made no comment. The Shinhua put out a very small one-liner thing saying that she's resigned and the army has taken over, forming an interim government.
Hmm.
That's what they have said. There's one Chinese publication, Government Control, which gave a couple of lines more that there were protests and all, which is why she left. That's all. I think they are waiting to see how things evolve in the next 2 3 days.
Yeah, but it's not a bed of roses for them.
No, it's not. I think it will be for all of us neighbors. At least we'll have to watch what's
Yeah, for
happening.
us it's a challenge. There's no question about it. But
And the Chinese have also made a lot of investment. Now they'll be worried about which way things are going to go. They're building various things, and the new government, whether it will um, go in for more or whether it will pay them also. All that will come up.
Yeah, the new government seems to have a Nobel laureate in it, so one can only imagine which direction it is going in.
Exactly.
Crazy.
As I
Yeah.
said, the chief has also done training in the West.
Yeah. Funny thing is, the army chief's wife is a cousin of Sheikh Hasina. So,
And he gave 45 minutes.
but we
Don't
were
tell you.
ready, sir. Kudos to our agencies and kudos to our this thing. The whole thing was literally ready. Yes,
Yeah.
Jaishankar ji said that. Oh, it was just fatafat happened and this and that. Well, fair enough. you know, you don't pull out somebody from a cool country, if I may, in 45 minutes. It doesn't happen. So there has to be everything sorted out. Women would take, and no, with no offense to any lady, it's a personal thing, but she would have taken more time to pack. There were 8-10 suitcases, so you know she was ready. Sir, it's always a pleasure talking to you, and trust you me, the certain insights and when that you give, which really help people like me to build on the little research that we are doing. So it's always a pleasure talking to you, and I would be sure to read your article. I somehow missed it. Normally, I do searches of my favorite writers once or twice a week. I didn't kind of see it this time. Thank you so much, sir, for
Thank
joining
you.
me. I'll see you back again. Jai Hind.
Thank you.